Good morning, everybody, and good evening, everyone who are joining with us far and wide. Today is our third episode, Dhamma Discussion series. Joining with me is Professor Kariyawasam from International Buddhist College, Thailand. So, just to get a start for today's episode, I wanna uh, mention that to, since today's topic is about the deities, devas, and god and goats, it's pretty interesting. I personally like this topic because we're gonna be talking some wonderful, fantastic, beautiful beings who have done good karmas. To begin with, I would like to touch base and go over some of the, you know, um, language-based usages about the gods, and deities, so that we could find out the place of, deities in the Buddhist teachings. First, one of the very famous use of the deities is monotheism. Monotheism in the monotheism, it's about a creator god, an immortal creator god, which you see in many religions. And then we find out, uh, theism, the belief of the gods, deities, and also we find out the pantheism and polytheism, which talk about an acceptance of many gods, many deities. And also we find out this new use uh, called trans theism. That means neither theistic nor atheistic, but is beyond them, which we see in in Jainism, in others, some of the post-classical Hindu philosophies and religions. So basically, we also find another term called atheism, wherein which we find out that there are people who do not believe the existence of a god. So now we have to find out the place of the gods or deities in the Buddhist teachings. We know that there is no creator god, capital G or D, and all the let's find out the proper word for these divine beings. We call it deva. So they are devas, they are mortals, and they are not immortals, as well as they are not creator gods like in the other religions. So the Buddhist divine beings are specific in terms of you know uh, being kind of a normal being, like, although they have a lot of comforts, but they are mortals, as well as not creator gods. With that in mind, we can sort of find out the basic introductory notes about the devas. Deva is the Pali word for deity. So because we believe in multiple deities who are born and who die, they are not immortals, they are mortals. So they have 5 qualities that are in particular more than the humans. Ayu, they surpass humans in 5 qualities in particular. Ayu means lifespan. One means beauty. Sukha means happiness. Yasa means fame. Adipataya means power. So in one of the suttas in Anguttara Nikaya Tikanipada, it is mentioned that devas, divine beings, surpassed the normal humans in 5 qualities, as I mentioned before: lifespan, beauty, happiness, fame, and power. And devas could be anthropomorphic in appearance and always very beautiful. I mean, we know because we can't see them, right? A lot of people think, how can we see the devas? Just as the Mahabrahma can be seen, Mahabrahma can be seen by is invisible to the deities, devas. The devas are invisible to the humans, so the humans can see the devas through their solid consciousness, right? And the food of the devas is very subtle. We call it Sudha Bhojana in Pali. And their bodies are also very refined, more refined than us, and free of all the gross impurities. That's what happens when they die. They don't leave their bodies in heavens, because their bodies are very refined, as well as without all the gross impurities. Also, we know their sensuality, because they are more sensuous than the humans, but their sensuality is more refined and very subtle, so that it's not solid like with the humans. Humans sensuality is very solid. That's why people looking for solid things in sensual life in the human world. And there are two kinds, Bhuma Deva and Sagga Deva. So Bhuma Deva means earthly devas, which you call terrestrial deities, who live mostly in the forest and in the earth. And while the other category is Sagga Devas, they are living in the aerial places. So in some of the suttas say that they are 8 kilometers tall. One deity in the Sagga Deva 8 kilometers tall. I mean, there are some preferences. Anyways, so as I said to you, that they are normally invisible to human beings, because our visual consciousness is not that powerful to see them. Just as Brahma is invisible to devas, they can see them too. Mostly when they are born in the heavens, they are equipped with a grown body. It doesn't grow gradually. At the same time, they are equipped with a mansion, for a particular deity, especially in terms of the aerial, deities. And they are spontaneous beings. They don't have any parental connection. And we also see that they have, gender, differences too at some point. Deva Putta means a Deva son. Deva Dita means a Deva, daughter. So that means even though they have no parental connection, but they have these gender differences at some point, Deva Putta and Deva Dita. So they have kind of a symbiotic relationship between senior deities in heavens. So also, before we moving on to the first question from the Professor Kariyawasam, I want to say that one of the very interesting points in regard with the human world and the heavens. So the human realms is usually considered to be the ideal state for realization of the Dhamma, as well as is the balanced place for place of pains and pleasures. When you see the hells, they are pretty much a lot of suffering. When you take a look at of the heavens, there are a lot of pleasures. So because humans have a balance of pain and pleasure, this is the best place to practice Dhamma and have a very neutral life. And also we know that there's a clear difference between the Western deities and the Buddhist deities, because the Western deities, as I said, Western gods, they are immortals, as well as they are creator gods. But unlikely the Western gods, the Buddhist deities, they are mortals, as well as they are not creator gods. They are just beings who normally have done good things before they become devas, and then once they finish their time, they expire from the place. They would be humans back again. Also, they would be animals. They would be whoever. We can't specify that. So anyways, so this is kind of an introductory note at the beginning of this discussion. So let me ask the first question from the professor. So the first question from the professor is, do Buddhists believe in God or gods? So G-O-D, G capital. And how can we see them? And I answered in some ways, but professor may have a different answer. Are the devas in all religions same? Because all religions talk about devas. So please, yeah, share with your idea. Please share your thoughts with us.
It's a very interesting subject to talk about devas. And yeah, the Buddhists, of course, believe in gods. As the Venerable just explained, that there are two kinds of way that can we talk about the gods and capital God, God, simple God, God. So the simple Buddhism really believes that simple God, gods. There are so many gods as explained in Buddhism. Buddhism really, that is one kind of beings. Buddhism really explained that is devas, celestial beings normally, because Buddhism talk about karma, and because of the karma, various kinds of beings are born in various kinds of planes. So the heavenly beings mentioned in the name of devas. So this deva word used in different ways. Devas, Devaputta, Devata. This is the kind of way those things, those the names given for the devas. And we can see there is one very important scripture in Buddhism, that is the Samyutta Nikaya, where it gives one kind of Samyutta, actually two Samyuttas explained as Devata Samyutta and the Devaputta Samyutta. By these two, Devata Samyutta means that it mentioned the Devaditas, the female gods, and Devaputta Samyutta, where it mentioned about the male gods. So these gods have come to ask questions or get some clarification for their doubts to the Buddha, as well as for some monks, and they appeared and they asked questions and they had some discussions. So this is the way that Buddhism explains about the gods. And these gods, of course, as I just mentioned, and they have come to see the Buddha and the monks, but it is not really that anybody can see the devas in their figure. No. Only what we can understand that they can see the kind of a light. In a form of light, they appear to the monks as well as to the Buddha, and to ask questions and for a discussion and so on. So now we can understand anyone can hear their voice but cannot see the figure, only see the light, because we can understand that in some suttas. Now, for example, when some devas come to see the Buddha, supposing when the Buddha was in Jetavana, Jetavanam obhasetva, that is the kind of words have been used there. Obhasetva means eliminating the Jetavana. The whole of Jetavana was eliminated at the time that particular Deva appeared to the Buddha. Then asked some questions. Now in the Mahamangala Sutta, and one they were wanted to get some clarification about the auspicious factors. Then he came to the Buddha. So at that time it's mentioned Jetavanam Obhasita, all of Jetavana illuminating that he appeared to the Buddha. So this is the way now the Devas coming to ask questions and so on. This is the way now we can see. But those lights, of course, is the normally for every kind of Devas, this is they appeared in the kind of a way of light. Now, for example, the some devatas, those are terrestrial uh, devas, what we call, and they live on trees. And sometimes some people can see the lights travel, and they say that is devata lights or deva lights. They say that, and the lights travel from tree to tree sometimes, and tree to the sky or that way. And this is I wanted to mention that, and they really appear in the form of light. So that has been explained in the suttas also, that when they visit to the Buddha or monks to ask some questions, and they explain that, and they are coming in the form of light. And these devas, of course, the can really discuss the various kinds of uh, uh, matters, especially philosophical matters also they can discuss. And there are some very intelligent questions they may have asked, and so on. And again, some of the uh, stories that have explained that, and they give some very important information for the people who are really facing some kind of dangers also. Some say that Rukka Devata, that means the some kind of devas inhabited on trees, and they have given the information for their sake. That means for those people, and the stories have given them various kinds of stories, and some are facing kind of dangers at that time. They have given some kind of sign to escape from that danger, and that is the kind of a way that they have communicated with the people also, and they the and some kind of a very good question has asked from the Buddha one time, one Deva, because I am giving this kind of information to understand how they really ask questions, ask something to get their clarification. And one time, one Devata wanted to know why the monks are very beautiful. Beautiful men, and they look very nice and so on. Then the Buddha really explained that, and they don't they don't think about the past, they don't think about the future, they are living present moment. That's why their color is very nice. Okay, that is the way that we can understand how they are, what way they talk, and what kind of questions they are, how they appear.
Next, I would like to talk about Bhumma Devas, and even I and Professor, we both talked about the two categories of the Devas in the Buddhist teachings. Bhumma Devas, terrestrial Devas, deities, and Sakadevas, aerial deities. So when we talk about the Bhumma Devas, there's a pretty much interesting note from the text that we could find this way. So the devas of forest and in other earthly places, they are called Bhuma devas. There's a reason why someone can become a terrestrial devas, unlikely an aerial deva. So the main reason is someone who could do a lot of good karmas, but with some deficiencies of those good karmas, someone can be reborn as a terrestrial deva. So when someone is doing a good karma, but if there could be any deficiencies of those particular good karmas, such beings could be reborn as Bhuma devas. So it looks like that it's not like the typical devas in the sagas, which you call aerial devas. It seems to me that aerial devas, normally complete perfectly the particular good karma, but when it comes to Bhuma devas, they try to do a good karma, but they end up with some deficiencies. Sometimes they do a good karma, but at the end they worry about it, they regret about it, maybe they don't do it fully completely, something like that. So what kind of Bhuma devas, terrestrial devas, we can see in the text? The first type of Bhuma devas, terrestrial devas, is Samudra devata, sea devas, sea deities, so ocean deities. So the king of the ocean deities is Manimekala. The second category is Nadi devata, river deities, those deities who live in the rivers. They all are Bhuma devas. Third category is Atavi or Vana devata, forest deities. Uyyana or Arama devata, park deities, so deities who are in the parks. Palasa devata, plant, bush or foliage deities who live with the plants and who having some territorial ownership of these places. Kusana devata, grass deities, those of the deities who live with grass. So that we gotta be very careful that this may have been the reason why Buddha is really looking at the grass cutting too at some point. Nagara devata, town deities. Anto devata, household deities, those of the deities who live in houses and rooms. Rukha devata, tree spirits, which is one of the very famous type of Bhuma devas. Most of the tree spirits come from Bhuma deva category. Bali Patigrahika devata, so those are the deities who received offerings of people. There are a lot of people who invoke blessings and these blessings they need from some deity. So these are the type of deities who we need to understand by Bali Patigrahika devata. They are also one of the Bhuma devas, terrestrial devas. And also Valahaka devata, cloud deities. Buddhism does not believe that weather changes happen, especially the normal weather changes happen from deities, but the unusual weather changes could happen from deities. Under cloud deities, there are warm cloud deities, cold cloud deities, and unusual weather changes. Also done by sort of kind of deities under cloud deities. So you could understand that these deities who come under Bhuma devas, terrestrial devas, they play a bigger role in terms of cosmology, the environment that we never see, because the main reason is that our visual consciousness is not that refined for us to be able to see who they are and their everything. So anyways, with that in mind, I would like to ask the second question with a couple questions together from Professor. What do you think about these terrestrial deities, as well as what do you think whether Buddhism is supporting atheism or monotheism? Is Buddha a god? So please, Professor.
Yes, actually, now first of all, I will come to these Bhuma Devas. There are many of them really have become Devas. Now, for example, some of the leaders of some countries and some places, and they, after the death, and people regarded him as that kind of a leader, as a deva. So ultimately they become the devas and Bhuma devas. In that manner, we have a lot of devas. People really believe in them and worship them and give them the kind of a pujas and so on. And that is kind of a Bhuma devas. How some of them are become Bhuma devas. And the other kind of question that really raised here, whether Buddhism, atheism, or atheist, and the monotheism. Okay, so the that really I can say that, and neither of these things, Buddhism does not fall into atheism as well as atheism as well as the monotheism. Atheism means, and there is not believe in God. That is the atheism. So the Buddhism, we are talking about the devas, and Buddhism really talk about devas. Probably they may really say that, and Buddhism does not really believe in creator God. That is why that means it comes into again the monotheistic attitude. So and that is why normally some of them will try to say that Buddhism is atheism. It is not that. Buddhism does not, if Buddhism does not talk any of the gods, then it falls into atheism. But Buddhism talks quite a lot of gods. So in that case, it's not atheism. But again, the Buddhism not a monotheism, because monotheism means an one God, believe in one God, and who is a creator God, who is a powerful God, and that kind of a supernatural kind of a character, if really believe in, that is the monotheism. But Buddhism does not really accept that kind of a character, and not really uh, accepted that uh, the not really accept that any kind of a creator God exists. In Buddhism, more or less talk about it rejected the Isara Nimmanavad. This is the Pali term for monotheism. Isara Nimmana means some kind of a supernormal character which really creates the world as well as the beings or the people also. That is the Isra Nimmanavad. Buddhism really rejected that kind of belief. If there is some people believe in that kind of character, so the completely Buddhism rejected that, and Buddhism says that this world has been naturally, and it is really originated, this world. We know that in the Aganya Sutta, there is a particular sutta which has been mentioned how this world has been originated, and how the human beings have been originated. That is also have been explained in great detail. So in that case, Buddhism is not really fall into that monotheism kind of a category. And the Buddhism normally talks about the world. We get any kind of a view of the world, as just mentioned about the world has been formed natural way, and ultimately the people really get to the senses and about the view of the world. Chakuna lokang rupang diswa. Chakuna rupang diswa. uh, kind of a way that, and it has been explained that people see things by their senses, uh, ear, eye, ear, and nose, and inside. This is the way then people have the contact with the outer world. So that is all the world. That world is not really created by any supernatural being. So that is why we cannot really say that and Buddhism is a monotheism. So it falls into a monotheistic way. No, that is how we can answer for that kind of a question whether Buddhism monotheism or falls.
Interesting. The next question and the discussion that we're going to be talking is the birth and death of a deity. What's the normal process of a birth and a death of a deity? We know that uh, the devas are spontaneously born and they are not born with the parental connection, and we know that when they are born they appear to be fully grown, as well as they already equipped with a palace and a retinue. So this is what we normally see in the text, and also we know we can see that they were putras, they were sons, and they were dita, they were daughters. But there are some questions about their death. Once they complete their time in specific terrestrial or arid places, what we see is that there are five things happen to a deity before they die, before he she dies, as well as we see there are premature deaths that can happen to two particular kinds of deities. We call them Kidda Padosika, uh, devas who die because of extreme sensual pleasures, while Manopadosika means devas who die because of extreme envy and animosity, specifically mind-based issues. We know that there are five things happen to a deity who's going to die, who's imminent death. His or her garments become soiled, his or her garlands fade, his or her armpits grow sweaty, his or her body loses its growing complexion, he or she becomes restless on his or her seat. So that's one side. On the other hand, the premature deaths happen to deities, devas, because of extreme sensual pleasures. That's one of the main reasons we call them Kidda Padosika devas. Also, uh, because some devas are very envious and keeping a lot of animosities, because when people are having a lot of pleasures, this can happen to humans too at some point. So they die. The second type of premature uh, death beings are Manopadosika devas. They die because of animosity and envy and those kind of stuff. So, Professor, uh, what do you think about uh, you know the birth and the death of devas, deities, as well as their premature deaths? Also, can you delineate some information about six main heavens in the Buddhist teachings, with some of the details inside, Professor?
Now, as it has been explained in Buddhism, the birth of the Deva is really explained as just you mentioned, and in a fully formed way. Now, for example, it mentioned that in the books, some people they slept here, and they got up in heaven or Devaloka, it's called. So they got up in a fully formed way, not really like how human beings, and they born as children and they grow gradually and that sort of thing. do not appear for the devas normally, it's mentioned, and they fully from way that they appear. So that is the birth of a deva. And death of a deva is again when we die, when a human being dies. Normally he kept something here, then his mind or some other things which are really going away. But his physical body is kept here. But according to Buddhism, when Deva dies, it really normally don't talk about death. It's called, the word has been used as chuti. Anyway, chuti word is being used for human beings as well when they die anyway. But this is the kind of a way that it has been mentioned that because of, and they are not really keeping anything behind when they die, and they just disappear. When they disappear, and then only the death of the Deva. And again, very important thing is happening that then when some kind of a Deva is approaching the death, then some kind of signs are appearing. Then other Devas also, that Deva himself also can understand that this is the time for him to disappear from that particular plane of existence. So that means he will that particular Deva has all Devas normally have a very good garland, flower garland. That flower garland will not melt any day. It exists all the same every time, as fresh as well as and with good smell and so on. But when the Deva is approaching the dead, that flower garland get fade. So that is one. The other one is that then he begins to sweat from his armpits, and again his clothes getting soiled. And then he does not like his seat, because every Deva has a seat in their where they live, and in that particular kind of a plane, and they have a seat. That is, he is always sitting on that seat. That's what it seems, the explanation given like that. And that he begins to not really like that seat to sit. So these kind of signs show that and he is approaching the death. So then of course is a kind of a way that that he is going to die then and disappear as after that.
When Professor was talking about six heavens, I particularly took some interest about the Nimmanarati, heaven. We know that in Nimmanarati heaven, a lot of female deities, usually occupying this heaven. If I'm not mistaken, I think even Visakha was also reborn as a deity in Nimmanarati. So basically, I would ask a question from the professor in regard to these female deities presence in Nimmanarati. Is it normal that Nimmanarati has a lot of female deities, or is it just a gender specific heaven? Unlikely the Parinimita Vasavati, the one we call the highest heaven. That's one question, because we know that in this Nimmanarati heaven there are particular kind of deities called Manapakayika. So these Manapakarika deities, they are very specific, uh, because they are kind of a special class of female devas, and we know that Arahant Anuruddha had some discussions, conversations with these female deities in Nimanrati. So that's the first question. What do you think about these female deities? Is it gender specific heaven? The second question, Professor, is that we know. Some of the stories revolve around some of the animals live in the heavens, especially sucker the sucker the sucker's uh, you know vehicle, which was driven by Madhuri, and this particular chariot was drawn by 1,000 horses. And now this is a big question. And Devasaka had an elephant too called Airavana. I think there's a huge discussion going on about these two. How come animals could live in the heaven? Or how come an elephant is to live in a heaven? I know this is a huge controversy that we could see in Kathavattu Pakaran in Abhidhamma Pitaka, because in Kathavattu, Theravadins strictly deny the notion of existence of animals in the heavens, saying that they are mind-made animals. They are not animals; they are mind-made. These 1,000 horses, as well as elephant called Airavana. They say that there is no there is no elephant called Airavana, but there is a deity called Ravana. Whenever the sucker wants to ride an elephant, he transforms into an elephant. So it's something like that. So what do you think about uh, the presence of animals in the heavens too? So that's the second question. And yeah, so these two, I think you would have a nice you would have a good answer for these two questions: the female deities in Imanarati and animals in heavens. What do you think about these two?
Oh, this is very controversial kind of question because of now the Nimmanarati means and the kind of creation by herself, and she loved it very much. That is the kind of meaning we can get according to the term of Nimmanarati Devas, and they may have created by themselves the particular kind of mansions where they live in the heavens, and they really like them very much, because this is we can understand now in human world also. The people normally, some people, they build up houses and ultimately they really like what they have built up and so on. That a kind of way that we can think about that particular kind of devas. And the other thing is the talking about some of the animals have been born in the heavens, so on. And because now Sakadeva also has that kind of a way. And in another place we can read some stories. Even the Sakadeva was going to have a fight with the other kind of demons, and so the ultimately, and he was riding in a chariot, and that chariot, of course, is was pulled by the animals, and that sort of way. That, of course, those may be in heaven, and that kind of things have been explained very much of those things. I think it is as the one of the Nikayas have given the kind of explanation. Those are mind-made things. So in same way, they even the Vijnanavadis, idealists, Buddhist idealists, Vijnanavadi, Yogacharyas, and they also talk about the in the hells. In the hells, the there are some people and who are born in the hells as pretas also, and they see some of the things very much, that now, for example, they can see the pus, uh, that kind of things. They like it very much, and the reverse of pus. There cannot be reverse of pus, but they really see them. Then they jump into them and play them with them because they are pretas. They are like those things. That is because of their mind, of course, that is created those things. So that is the kind of really the explanation we can give. Uh, for that kind of
Thank you. One of the very nicest questions about devas is that their spiritual eligibility for becoming a sotapanna, maybe a higher spiritual stage. I wonder what you think, Professor. Uh, the spiritual eligibility for a deva. Uh, in terms of your understanding about your reading about the devas, because we know that Vesavana, Deva Vesavana, in one of the deities in the Chatu Maharajika, and Alavaka, and some other deities, they became Sotapanna. So, what's the possibility of a Deva to become a Sotapanna? And now, in the case of Alavaka, he was a demon, and we see that in the stories. It says that once Alavaka became a Sotapanna person, he couldn't maintain his Yakka demonic body, so he had to become a Deva once he became a Sotapanna. So what do you think about the possibility for a Deva to attain Sotapanna or higher spiritual stages?
deities. That, of course, is a kind of a problem because of the normally, according to Buddhism, uh, other than the human being, no any kind of any other being can attain into the kind of highest position like the Sotapanna or Sakadagami and so on. But it has been explained for the Alavakaya. The Alavakaya has a different kind of interpretation. Alavakaya means not really a kind of a yakka as we see. It's not really a kind of a demon, or it has become a kind of a forest dweller, human being, very tough one. Normally, those tough kind of persons have been mentioned by the term yakka in Buddhism quite often. So in that case, now for example, I can give you one kind of example. Now, Porisada Yakka. Who was the Porisada Yakka? Porisada Yakka means the Porisada king. He was a king earlier in one country, but some or other he was accustomed to eat human flesh. Then when the people discovered that he was eating human flesh and people chased him away, then he ran to the forest and lived in the forest and eating human flesh, and that is how he got the name Porisadayak. He was a human being. So in that way, Alavakayaka also could have been, but anyway, the story, that there are so many kind of stories have been given about the way that and he has extreme power and so on. But what I really see that there have been lost cultures. See, so when a culture is lost, and there everything is existing, and people also sometimes existing them as a kind of a, because those culture ultimately becomes a kind of a forests. And the people also become the forest dwellers and kind of yaksas then ultimately, as explained. Yeah, this is the kind of a way that what I think about the Alavaka Yakka. Because I am, again, Venerable, I must give another kind of proof for that. How ultimately Alavaka Yakka brought very good question to ask the Buddha. Those questions, of course, only can answer by a Buddha. Then that means it was in lost culture. In that culture, they are Buddhists, and they have kept this particular kind of a book. Alavaka must have studied that book. Then ultimately, he brought that kind of questions to the Buddha.
We have come to the questions and answers time. The first question was uh, directed by someone, and it's about are Hindu gods rejected by Buddhism, or were they real devas at one point? It's about the Hindu gods and the Buddhist notion of Hindu gods. So is it same? Is it different? Um, uh, does Buddhism accept all these Hindu gods, Professor?
Now, talking about Hindu gods, yes, of course, and some of the Hindu gods uh, rejected, but the not all of them. Some of them are really only rejected. You see, not now. For example, Sakkadev. Sakka is the in Hinduism that is Indra. Indra has become a Sakka in Buddhism. There are a lot of devas like that and taken into Buddhism and explained in the Buddhist way, given the Buddhist names and Buddhist point of views. So that is the way, and the other thing is some of the yaksas also have made as devas in Buddhism, and sometimes uh, we can see quite a lot of places yaksas, and they were earlier yaksas, and ultimately become devas, and in some places yaksa and deva, the two words has been used for the same devas. So the yaksas also become devas in Sri Lanka, of course, have been quite a lot.
So how does that happen?
It happens because of one thing is yaksas always mentioned as a tough ones, and they are harming people. And the devas of not that type of harmful beings. So then making yaksas as devas, that means they become good ones, you know. That is the kind of a way, that attitude, because when someone converted into Buddhism, he is becoming a good, you know. That kind of a way that has been explained, and it has been really the way that.
Moving on to the next question, it's about what are the main issues for a deva. What are the main issues a deva can struggle. We know pretty much when Buddha was talking about the anicca concept, that everything is impermanent, and we know that some of the devas, they are crying out. They were very worried about, because they knew that their comforts would end one day, expire one day. So what are the main issues with deva life? And we know that in the question, this person asking, they have anger, they have envy, they have some other normal human issues as well. So what do you think about the real issues that are being faced by the devas?
That is the uh, devas, of course, more or less like ourselves. We are like we are. Now, they also have anger and jealousy and so on. They also very much like pleasures. And some of the time when it's mentioned, uh, because normally we say that and they were local, they were world, and place of the devas is a very good place where can enjoy very much life. So that is why normally people like very much to be born in the heaven and so on. So then when devas have these pleasures, and some of the devas have more pleasures than the other one. At that time, the person, that the one deva who has less kind of a way of enjoyment, right? And when he sees the, the other very much higher pleasures are enjoying one, then the naturally he has the jealousy and anger also. It says because of this anger mounted, and ultimately he is dying because of that anger, and that sort of way that is. So then jealousy and other anger and that sort of everything with them. So they also like pleasures. Everybody likes pleasures. The as uh, living beings, uh, human beings also, because of these pleasures, they also very much like to be born in heaven. And they do a lot of kusala karma, thinking that and next life we can have the good life.
Final question. It's very important to ask this question at the end of this discussion. The question is, what should be the attitude of humans towards the devas? You know that a lot of people have different views about the devas. Some of them think they want to offer uh, things as much as they can towards the deities. Some people think that they just become good people so that they are being taken care of by the deities. Some people also think that we can use the deities to do malicious things towards other people, like in some places. So what do you think, Professor, your thoughts about what should be the attitude of people, sort of idea, towards the devas? So this is really good for every being. Thank you.
Okay, this is a very good question, because now, as we are talking about the God, and we must know that and how we believe in God as well as, and we normally sometimes and we expect some help also from God, and we are really asking help from God. That is natural thing of human beings. And I can remember at this time one of the very important passage from the Ratana Sutta. Divacha rattocha harantiye balin tasmahi ne rakkata appamatta. That means the people are really worshipping devas with the bali. Bali means the pujas. Normally now we also see now when people go to worship the god temples, and they bring lot of pujas. So those pujas, mostly the fruits and cakes and things like that, because those things are the food for the devas, and they like them very much, and they give them, and they wish some kind of a thing. That is why. So when these pujas are bringing, as these pujas are bringing for the devas, and it says that this is the Buddha's advice for the devas, Divacharatoj, day and night, and people bring the pujas. So then your duty is to protect these people who worship you with the pujas.
That brings to the end of our episode 3 about uh, do Buddhists believe in God or gods? And Professor and myself, we were talking about a lot of things about the devas, and we know that we believe in devas, but they are mortals and they are not creator gods, and they can be anywhere from earth to sky. So we don't need to worry about anything. I mean, as long as we do good things, as long as we practice kusala kamma by speech, by word, by thoughts, by actions, we are fine, and they will protect you. But your focus, your attention should be more focused on doing good things, so that you will, on one side, on one hand, you approaching the nibbana much faster. On the other hand, in case you can attain nibbana this life, you will have enough good karmas, not so that you will not be drawn to unwholesome places. That's the main key thing. Thank you, Professor, and thank you everyone who has been watching, who watched everything today, the whole episode. And I want to mention that Dhamma Pariyasana episode series, Dhamma Discussion series, keeps going. Next Wednesday, it's going to be on June 10th. We're going to be talking, what do we get wrong about nirvana, nibbana in others words. So nibbana is such a confused subject, kind of a misperceived subject for many, and we're going to be digging into nibbana from different perspectives. What is nibbana, misconceptions about nibbana, textual references, how do we see nibbana, and how should we shape our life in terms of nibbana, and all this stuff. So please stay tuned with us for next Wednesday as well, and I wish you good night as well as good day. Take care. Have a nice day. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.